Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. I'm coming to you from Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm at the headquarters for iZotope. We're with Shahan Nercessian. Did I get that correctly?
Yes,
Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yep.
And what I understand is you have two titles. One is wizard and one is magician, right?
I'll take both.
So tell us what you do here.
Yep, so I am a DSP research engineer. I came here about 2 years ago, and I primarily work on some of our machine learning type focus applications for audio, so both in the field of kind of enabling innovative workflows for our users and kind of in the advent of such tools like that you've seen for audio restoration and for source separation, some of the technologies that kind of can use machine learning to actually alter audio in ways that we never thought possible before.
Right, absolutely. What's amazing here, getting a tour of the facility and seeing the products that you guys are working on, is just how forward-thinking you are. Tell us a little bit about what drives that. What pushes things and enables you to see ahead of where technology is going?
Yeah, so I think that paramount to all of this is talking to our users and getting a sense of their pain points. But I would say that, if someone asks us how we come up with our products, the easy answer is to say that we have product managers that kind of scope the field and based on the understanding of the world's needs, kind of give an overarching idea of some of the features that they would like in a new product. But one thing that you have to understand here at iZotope is that every product that we make involves a multidisciplinary team, and we are all extremely passionate about music and the fields that we come in, and frankly we want to impose our expertise into any product as much as possible. So at the core of all of our products is amazing sounding audio processors, and we try to pair that with very slick design and different aspects that we think could appeal to our users. For me, on the research side, our goal is to understand the state of the art and tell people what they don't even know that they need to have. So it's just kind of being able to draw the connection of what is in a research paper, what is just kind of bleeding edge technology, and what we can kind of ultimately take, put the iZotope spin on it, and make it something that will become indispensable, and people can't imagine a world without those tools in them.
Right. One of the things I really like walking through the facility here is, and talking to you as well, is there's guitars everywhere, there's keyboards everywhere, there's microphones. You guys have a recording studio here. We're in a mastering studio. Music is a big part of what drives it. You're not just writing code.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's part. I feel like I am particularly vocal during product development and getting certain features in, because I know what it's like as someone that is tracking, as someone that is trying to mix my own music, and I just kind of see things both through the eyes of the engineer that wants to have very cool features, and then also through the eyes of a musician that has specific needs that they want their tools to kind of cater to. Right.
So two of the kind of buzzwords that are associated with some of the products here are machine learning and AI.
Yep.
What does that mean? And how does that impact what the products do?
Yeah, so they're definitely kind of buzzwordy, kind of trendy things. I would argue that iZotope has been in the game of making intelligent audio processors for way before this AI ML buzz that we hear about. And frankly, if you kind of want to debate it, I even think that some of the tools that are ubiquitous in the audio engineers toolkits, if you kind of look at the letter of the law of how you define AI, could be considered some primitive forms of AI even. I mean, like something like a compressor senses signal strength and uses that signal strength to be able to know how much to attenuate the signal and the like. So if we kind of think of that as like a very, very primitive form of intelligence that is kind of manipulating the signal, we see that maybe some of the things that we didn't think are AIs could be vaguely classified as AIs. The aim of our use of machine learning in our products is kind of twofold. We kind of look at things of how can we help facilitate workflows, and then we think of how can we enable new types of processing. So that's kind of what we're after. So we kind of released our first form of ML-based type of assistive workflows with Track Assistant and Neutron, and we've kind of expanded it to the master assistants and all the different type of assistants that you tend to see associated with our products.
Right.
And then kind of on the audio processing end, we started with in RX with dialogue isolate, and have kind of worked towards coming up with different types of dialogue restoration solutions. And in most recently in RX7, we released music rebalance, and we've kind of been expanding that on now, as you know, in Ozone 9.
Right, right. And I think a misconception is when you see those terms that the machine learning and AI, that the software, the computer is going to do the job for you. But that's really not the point of what you guys are doing with it.
According to my opinion, our audio processors can stand up to any other audio processors that you see in the industry.
Definitely.
So what we're trying to do is having that as kind of like a core piece of tech, just being able to enhance things about it that will make people's lives easier, will kind of take away the need to work extremely hard on utilitarian tasks and get them more in the creative mindset. And I kind of liken to this, I mean, this is kind of happening all the time. There was a time when people had to do math in their head, and then the calculator came around, and then it kind of made it obsolete to have to do some math in your head. And now at this point in time, you know, in the age that we live in, there was a time when you needed to have a lot of information in your brain that you can immediately recall. And now it's more the muscles that you need to flex is, given a complex question, how can you immediately find the information that you need to do a task? So the point is that I feel as though we are more evolving the requirements of being able to keep up with, say, how music production takes place, how recording it takes place and the like. And it should be considered a healthy thing that there are some tools that facilitate certain things that we have to spend a lot of time working on, so that now we need to kind of create new skill sets and new places that we can forge ahead in that we didn't think that we had to, or that we didn't have the time to because we were so busy working on things that now we're seeing that can be facilitated with some AI and machine learning type applications.
Right, right. I see it as kind of a development from the idea of, you know, we had presets.
Right.
You still do have presets, but you had presets where it kind of give you a starting point and a place to work from and let you get going. But this takes that to the next level because it can kind of look at what you're doing and kind of develop an instant preset for you, if you will, to start from.
Right, right. And we fully understand that it's not going to automate the entire workflow that it even involves utilitarian tasks. I mean, I like to think that we are coming up with what I would call like 80-20 type fixes, that we get most of the stuff done. It doesn't take that much effort to kind of get things to a good place. And I think it's also healthy for us to always ask the question of, where does the line between time-consuming utilitarian tasks end and creative endeavors begin, you know? And we can even kind of look at an example of Mix Assistant, where we try to set a rough levels for all the tracks in your sessions. And I think that we all agree that there is some subjective aspects to leveling a session, but that what was very interesting and instructive is that we found that with the algorithm that we developed, that we were almost disappointed that there's actually some objective truth in how we perceive balancing sessions. And, you know, these are good findings to have. They don't speak across the board all the time, but the fact that they can hold up more times than not should just be something that we should just take it as a data point, that it's like, ah, okay, we learned something. Now what?
Right, right, absolutely, absolutely. And just gives you a place to then be able to layer your creativity on top of that.
Exactly.
If you have that kind of starting point.
Exactly.
So years ago, in college, I programmed in Fortran and C, and I know what it means to create a program. But it boggles my mind to think of something like Ozone that has to be this huge mass of code. How do you then go into this huge mass of code and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add this feature to that. Tell us a little bit about that process. How do you develop these new features and implement them?
Right. So we try to modularize our code. I mean, just kind of follow the best engineering practices as well as we can. It is interesting because now we are in a space where we're thinking about entire workflows, and so we have to have additional management systems that can kind of look more holistically at what is going on to your session. So kind of thinking in terms of that, we're kind of able to establish frameworks for doing that, and things like our inter-plugin communication, having that as another framework so that it's kind of like another bag of tricks in our arsenal from which we can draw a more holistic understanding of what's going on in your sessions. It kind of speaks to that.
Yeah, right, right. So when you're developing a product, as we're speaking, Ozone 9 is just being announced.
Yep.
Are you already working on Ozone 12? Or how far out are you guys working?
Right, so an interesting thing is that we tend to have to think about things kind of on 2 tracks per se. I mean, the short term, and the short term doesn't need to be a few months ahead. It can even be a few years can mean the short term. And then also on our side, we work on research where we don't really know when it's going to fit into a timeline of a product or when we actually see that it's going to be productizable. We just understand that this is maybe a trend in the state-of-the-art bleeding-edge technology that speaks to our values that we would like to, in some time, we don't know when that time is, be able to integrate into our toolkit.
Right, right. Is it set up so that, for example, you own this part of Ozone, or are there teams that work on the different products, or does everyone work on everything?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like there's, we kind of distinguish development work from research work, and they're intermingled, and there's a lot of communications between them. Oftentimes the research side might be only involved in prototyping an idea, and then we can kind of hand it off to the development team to see it through to the end. Other times research might be a little bit more intimately involved given the nature of the task. So it's kind of like on a task-specific basis exactly how the cookie crumbles in that regard. But right. Again, we work in very interdisciplinary teams, and having the active conversation and communication is kind of paramount to our success in like deploying new products.
Right, right. Yeah. So the key to the success of products like iZotope is developing is the technology, but that technology has to be kind of behind the scenes. Right. So the user doesn't really have to think about code or any of those kind of things. Tell us a little bit about how what you do factors into the user interface side of things.
Yeah, so we also speak with design a lot. Sometimes when design hears about a particular algorithm, they think of like these what ifs, and like what can be still maybe automated under the scene, so they don't need to have so many parameters exposed to the user. So that's an interesting kind of like integration into algorithms where like the parameters that our DSP modules might have, not all of them might be exposed to the user, and either we use good sound design practices to be able to kind of create macro controls that the user doesn't need to see exactly all the knobs that live under our DSP. Right. Or if there's any certain instances where we want like a very slick workflow where you just kind of press a button and it kind of knows to automatically track this or sense that, then that kind of starts to be like an added layer into what was just kind of like a core basic algorithm.
Right, right. So what interests me looking at Ozone 9, you've added, is it 12 new musical styles to the tonal balance section, 10 or 12?
Yeah, something like on the order of 10. Yep.
And if I understand correctly, there's thousands of pieces of music that are fed into this software. Yep. Did you guys develop that software that analyzes all those things? And how do you choose the music that feeds in?
Right, so basically the music that we choose for this thing has to be representative of the type of music that our users are interested in producing. Right. And we do develop all the products that do all of our analysis, all of our machine learning algorithms. We develop all those things in-house.
Mm-hmm. Right. So how long does it take from you have this idea for we should do this base module in Ozone, how long does it take from that to where we actually see it come out in the software?
Right, so it kind of depends on the nature of the algorithm. If the DSP kind of speaks to like a more core DSP algorithm, it might be something more on the order of months. But we have machine learning features that took on the order of several months to even maybe under a year or about a year to develop. So there is a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. Yeah. We are very passionate and we try to work as hard as we can so that we can, and part of it is because we want to give new products to our users. On the other end, it also speaks to the fact that we want to have bleeding edge technologies in there. So the development cycle is long when it needs to, but it also kind of speaks to making sure that when we come up with a tool and we want to deploy it, that it's still speaking to the bleeding edge of where technology is.
So the perception of AI and machine learning, I mean, sometimes there can be negative connotations with that, and sometimes people assume or are skeptical of what they're going to get with that. How do you address that given that those technologies are in your products?
Yeah, so I think that the way that we address it is by making the features so convincing that people find them indispensable. And there might have been a time when the first exciter came out and people didn't know what an exciter was. And then when they saw what you could do with that thing, that it becomes kind of ubiquitous and everyone uses it. So I think that the more that we can understand our users' concerns and balance that with what we think is very compelling technology. I think that in time, the vernacular will change around that. And as long as we kind of show that the user's input and creativity is paramount and first, that it'll end up being a very fruitful side to all of our applications.
Right, right. I think of it, I guess, when I'm using the iZotope tools and different things, it's sort of like there's the digital versus analog, which is better, or this,
Sure.
this versus this, which is better. In my mind, I don't think of it that way. These are just tools that you use to accomplish a task, and you choose the best one to do what you want to do. And it doesn't matter to me whether there's AI or machine learning or digital or analog or whatever. What matters is the end result that gets you there. So, so that's my approach to it.
Definitely. Like, all these can coexist, and hopefully ultimately we can live in a world where you don't know when one thing falls in category A or category B. All you know is that you like the result, it helps you do what you want to do, and gets you thinking about things that maybe you didn't think about before.
Right, yeah, it opens your mind up, right? You can take your mind off of those things that are handled in the background, and you can be creative and work with it. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, sure.
Man, thanks so much for taking the
it's been
time
fantastic,
to give us a tour. It's a pleasure to meet you and get the tour here. Man, you guys are just doing magical things. I mean, I get the title of wizard.
I don't know about that.
Thanks, Shahan.
I really
great
appreciate
to meet you.
it. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining me at iZotope headquarters in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater.